Good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 North America EdTech 200, HolonIQ's annual list of the most innovative EdTech startups across North America. My name is Patrick Brothers. I'm the co-CEO of HolonIQ. I'm joined today by Ash Kularachi, the CEO at StartEd. Welcome, Ash.
Great to be here, Patrick.
Fabulous. And through the session, we are going to meet three incredible leaders who are part of the EdTech 200 cohort as well. I'll introduce them as we make our way through. As per all HolonIQ presentations, this will be a fast and furious 40 minutes, be action-packed. We're going to move through a lot of information through this period. If you've joined through the webinar right now, you'll receive a recording of the webinar immediately after as well. So don't worry, you can capture that. If you visit holoniq.com after this presentation as well, you'll also see a post, an analyst note on the EdTech 200, and you'll have the graphic as well. I'm going to hand over to Ash very shortly to share some insights on the US ecosystem and on StartEd. I'll share a little bit more about our methodology. We'll reveal the North America EdTech 200. This is actually the last in our annual EdTech 1000 series. So we have presented across 10 regions around the world, from South Asia, East Asia, Nordic, Baltic, Europe, you name it, we've been there, and this marks our 1000. As I mentioned, we've got some fabulous speakers today. You're going to meet three of the companies who are part of the EdTech 200, and we'll share a little bit how you can learn some more. For those of you new to HolonIQ, I see some wonderful familiar names in the list here, but no doubt we have some new faces as well. We are a global impact intelligence platform. We work in education, healthcare and climate as well, based out of New York with teams in Sydney and Oxford, soon London as well. Just incredible customers powering decisions that matter around the world as well. But I'm going to pause there and hand over to my good friend Ash to share more about the actual ecosystem and learn a little bit more about StartEd. Over to you, Ash.
Well, thank you, Patrick. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am founder and CEO of a company called StartEd. You may also have heard of EdTech Week, which is a global education innovation conference we produce in New York and now virtually. I pulled a few pages from what we're seeing in the investment activity and company building among the 38,000 companies in EdTech around the world, and the 10,000 or so that represent the North American ecosystem. So I want to share some of those insights with you and tell you a little bit about how StartEd has been operating over the last 6 years and continues to support innovation in the space. Now, I've grabbed a friendly, familiar graphic right from Patrick's playbook just to show you how intense the investment in the space has become over the last few years, only exacerbated and accelerated by the last few years. You'll see that some of the top geographies that are receiving that investment is North America, about 20 billion of that 75 billion going to the US and Canada. Interestingly, even though there are about 39,000 EdTech companies around the world, only about 6,000 of them receive institutional investment, and fewer actually receive investment as they further on. But there's good signs that those are changing, and I'll show you a little bit about how StartEd's been involved. Now, of the North American market, I've mentioned about 28% receive funding. You'll see some of those investors, institutional investors there on the screen. That only represents a few thousand companies receiving funding at a given stage. And you'll see that most of that investment comes from some familiar locations there on the right side of the screen. StartEd's trying to make that a little bit more equitable in how capital is deployed, and also inform founders about other types of capital they might be able to tap into as they grow their organizations. Now, the path to growing a company in the education space, as those of you in the audience who are founders know, is pretty varied and not always obvious. There on the left side of the screen, there's 20 different kinds of capital that here in the US you might be able to tap into. And usually those sources of investment activate at different stages of risk as you de-risk your organization. Now, there's actually 3 or 4 different kinds that have become very viable options just over the last couple of years, and I've started them there as well. If you haven't heard of regulated crowdfunding or revenue-based financing, I'd highly take a look at it, especially if you're an early-stage company. And there's a lot of business models in the space. I've just grabbed a few examples that I received the top investment there on the right side of the screen as well. Now, how does StartEd come into play through all of this? We are a learning and innovation network. You can see the breadth of it here on the screen. We really do fall into that kind of pre-K through workforce learning, birth to grade category. And we tend to be very inclusive in all the stakeholders in education being involved in innovation in some way. Now, we're trying to gain access to the capital, customers, and connections in space, and therefore give them access through our programs. And you can see a little bit of the growth of who's been involved in the startup ecosystem, and hope you'll consider taking part and joining. About 60% of the leaders, the senior investors, executive founders in the space who are part of the StartEd network tend to be female and underrepresented as well. Now, I'll simply say that to wrap up, the path to creating a company is pretty varied, and you may have heard of a few of the things at StartEd, things like our leadership forums at EdTech Week and our Shark Tanks. I'm hosting one tomorrow with some great investors and sharks. But if you're a company anywhere between idea to Series B, there's probably a way we can help, since we run non-dilutive programs, often supported by large organizations and senior individuals in the ecosystem, to build muscle in the tech space to continue building an organization. The programs are pretty varied. There's a few of those here on the screen here, but it is a pretty robust ecosystem. And next year, point your eyes to the bottom right there, we're introducing custom functional skill coaching, building product if you don't even know how to code, B2B sales, research and efficacy, and being able to do that in obscenely short amounts of time, so that you can go back to doing the more important thing, is solving problems in the space. And that's me. Thank you, those of you who are intending to take part in our programs and may be interested. Feel free to take a look at some of those websites that are there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ash. Wonderful insight, but also big thank you, I think, on behalf of the whole ecosystem for the work that you do. I don't think people appreciate how big an impact you have on the ecosystem, especially with functional skills. I mean, that's just such a great example of innovation supporting the entire space in areas that are really, really needed. So big thank you from us for the work that you do, and always love teaming up with StartEd wherever we can.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, let's move on. Thanks, Ash. Moving on super fast. Let's see this EdTech 200 and hear from these teams. The North America EdTech 200 is focused on identifying young, fast-moving and early-stage companies that have founded, for the most part, in the previous 10 years. We do have 1 or 2 exceptions. We don't like to break that rule, but there are a few exceptions because we want to focus on young organizations. From a geographic perspective, this definition includes the US and Canada. Mexico is included in our LATAM EdTech 100. We look for teams that are predominantly focused on this market, born in this market. That's sometimes a little tricky because teams are so global these days. From a status perspective, they are pre-exit, they are startups, they are new companies, they're not acquired or listed. And they are focused on technology, but that doesn't always mean software. And increasingly, as you'll see today as well, the definition of EdTech is really broadening to cover jobs, skills, wellness, financial literacy, you name it. It is fascinating to see the scope of which EdTech is tackling globally. Standard exclusions for the 100 emails we're about to get after this is we do not include listed companies, private equity sponsored companies or subsidiaries in this. Again, we're focused on young teams who we want to shine a spotlight on as well. The criteria that we follow is a five rubric criteria. We look at the market, its attractiveness, the product, its quality and uniqueness, the team, specifically its expertise and diversity, Capital, that doesn't just mean you've raised tons of money. It means that you have the ability to secure the resources that you need to achieve your vision. And demonstrated momentum, positive changes in size, velocity, and impact of the company over time. So without further ado, and you'll find this again at HolonIQ.com to inspect in due course over a cup of coffee this afternoon or this evening. This is the North America EdTech 200. We actually started out this year thinking we would only cover 100 companies, which is what we covered last year. But there, as Ash mentioned, there's been so much activity, and it is so hard to just pick 100 companies in North America. So we've shared the top 200 here as well. You can see they come from a wide range: assessment and credentialing, top left; STEAM and language learning; digital content and learning environments, top right; advanced technology, management systems. They could be LMSs, they could be SISs, they could be a broader definition, social management systems. Online learning, again, a tricky category to define, but where we've seen so much innovation specifically through the pandemic. And then workforce and skills, by far the fastest growing and biggest focus across EdTech globally as well. As I mentioned, you're going to get a copy of this recording straight after, and this is available at HolonIQ.com now as well. Let's move on really quickly, look at some of the stats from this year's cohort, and then hear from the teams. So on the pie chart, you can see the breakup of our major sectors: pre-K, K-12, higher ed, and workforce. Workforce nearly comprising half. And if you look to the right-hand side here, you can see the change since last year's cohort. Last year's cohort was only a 100. This year it's a 200, but you can see the share there, a growth in the representation of workforce, a little bit less in K-12 and higher ed as well. When we look at business model, direct to consumer is almost half again. And if you look to the right-hand side, you can see the change since last year, a slight decline in the representation of direct to consumer, and a real growth in B2B, which we've seen a lot of teams supporting companies, supporting universities, supporting schools, supporting institutions who have really needed and been reaching out for that support through the pandemic as well. We're seeing a younger cohort. This again is perhaps no surprise. The 2020 cohort again was a 100. You can see there was a very large representation there, nearly 50% between 7 and 9 years old. This year, a bigger representation of teams under 3 years old. There's been amazing growth through COVID as well. Interestingly, some of the older organizations have exited as well. And so there are less of those teams as part of the mix through a large wave of exits over the last 12 to 24 months. And then finally, when we look at that split at a more detailed level, as you saw on the map as well, we break the macro sector of workforce and skills out. So if there are management systems in corporate, we put them into management systems, but you can still see just how large a representation there is, both on the pie chart from this year and on the right-hand side, the change from last year's cohort of workforce and skills. Some declines in some areas in terms of representation, but again, we went from 100 to 200, so we're capturing a much larger cohort to represent here, so not 100% like for like. Once again, congratulations to all these teams. I mean, perhaps the hardest part of this process is actually picking the 200 or the 100. There is just such high quality of innovation in North America. It is just astounding. It's really hard. Going from 400 to 200, let me tell you, is some very painful decisions in that process. This really represents the best of the best as we see them, but the quality in the top 500, for example, is just very, very impressive as well. All right, we're going to hear from 3 teams right now. This is definitely my favorite part, actually hearing from teams who are making this impact. We're going to hear from Engagely, from 111, and from Circled In. We'll hear from Dan Avita, CEO and co-founder at Engagely first. Danny Pasquarella, founder and CEO at 111, will share more about her work. And then Rita Gupta will take us home to hear about Circled In. So without further ado, if I can ask Dan to join us on stage and share more about Engagely. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And We started Engagely last year as a result of observing my two daughters that at the time were thrust into Zoom school from one day to another. But our experience with online education, Daphne and mine, started the decade before. As I'm sure you know, Daphne is a co-founder of Coursera. She's also my wife of more than 30 years. And she and I have been working on this for a while now. I was on the Coursera board from the company's inception. This is also the third project I'm doing together with Serge. Serge, like Daphne, was a tenured computer science professor at Stanford. And between Daphne and Serge, they have over 4 decades of teaching at Stanford. And a lot of it was what today would be called HyFlex or hybrid. And initially, when we started Engagely, we thought about building the platform on top of an existing video conferencing platform, but we very quickly realized that you simply cannot offer the type of features that are required on a system that was designed for conference calls. And so we built this thing from scratch using a team of, at this point, over 35 developers throughout the world for teaching and for learning. So our system, like teaching and learning, is asymmetric. There is a user interface for the instructor, which is different than the user interface for students. Again, this is not a conferencing system. This is a digital learning platform. We collect a lot of analytics on what our students doing during the session. Our platform, as I'm sure you'll not be surprised, Patrick, with a lot of Coursera DNA that's built in, is not just for synchronous learning, but also for asynchronous learning. And I saw you had Disney as one of your customers. So when we started with the platform, we had this idea that we call Learn with Friends. Then we found out a few months later that Disney have Watch with Friends. So the asynchronous learning in Engagely, which now we call Study Hall, is in fact collaborative active learning, but as a group watching asynchronous content. So we support learning throughout all the different modalities, whether it's in person, whether it's remote, hybrid, or asynchronous. And it's all the same platform. As I pointed out, this was built for the ground up using browsers. We also have native applications for both iPhones as well as for Android devices. This platform is designed to be inclusive. So this will run on very old Chromebooks, very old Macs, very old PCs. I purposefully test it and use it all the time with a 13-year-old laptop that I've managed to revive to make sure that it works. We have this used in developing countries. Over the summer, for example, an elite German business school gave courses using Engagely throughout the continent in Africa, and the system worked flawlessly. And the reason we do that is not just because we reduce the compute requirements, but we also have done a lot of work on reducing bandwidth, so anybody can have access to very high quality education. We have several different pillars in the technology that make the experience very engaging. Due to the 5 minutes you allocated to me, Patrick, I can't get into all of them. But the first thing I'll talk about is tables. So our system is built to where the students, if you will, are in a breakout session and in the main session at the same time. And so they're never disconnected from the instructor. The students can talk to each other if they want while the class is going on. Obviously, it's very easy to do breakout sessions. All these modes are configurable by the instructor. If instructors are bothered by that, they can turn it off. But most sophisticated instructors actually leave it on because it fosters peer-to-peer education, which we all know lead to better learning outcomes. And everything that the student does during the session is tracked. And this, again, is not for spying purposes. It's basically to figure out which students need more help. And also, we present this data live to the instructor. One of the most challenging things on online education, and some of the institutions that are partnering with us are using Engagely for classes of hundreds of students, that it's very hard for the instructor to track what's going on in the classroom because you simply can't observe hundreds of faces all the time when you're teaching. And so we collect this data analytically and present various dashboards live to the instructor to give them a sense on an aggregate level how the class is doing, but you can also drill down to the individual student. So in summary, what we've done is build a platform that is designed to be fully comprehensible. It's comprehensible, but also comprehensive. It's fully integrated, so polls, quizzes are built, in fact, into the presentations, and the instructor can use any tool they want, PowerPoint, Keynote, Google Slides, and embed into those polls, video clips, and so on. It's designed to be multimodal. People use this not just for remote online education, but in fact for in-person as well. These insights are very useful for finding at-risk students. The grading is automatic. We feed all the data back to the learning management system. It's designed to where students can automatically take notes throughout the class, have access to these notes, and have the notes correlated with the recording of the class. And collaboration is very important. And so there's the tables that have both verbal as well as text chat, as well as shared documents and a collaborative shared whiteboard. So thank you very much, Patrick.
Wonderful. Dan, really impressive. I mean, I think everyone was, fascinated to see Engagely come on the scene. Incredible timing, and fascinating to see you span both synchronous, asynchronous, and you mentioned just now being used in physical classrooms as well. So really interesting to see where this space goes. And thank you for all of the work that you're doing, and no doubt creating better learning in all the classrooms that you're supporting as well. Thank you for your time, Dan, and cramming so much into 5 minutes. I know there's a whole story behind each of these elements as well. So thank you so much, Dan, and congrats on your success so far.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, moving right along. If I can ask Danny Pasquarella to join us on screen. Danny, we'd love to hear more about 111 and the work that you and your team are doing.
All right, thank you so much, Patrick, for the introduction. And hello, everyone. I'm Danny Pasquarella. I'm the founder and CEO of 111. I grew up in a household where, my mom was alone at 16 and she was working an hourly job to support herself, and financial stability was not even in the realm of, this will be my reality soon. And she was able to overcome that. So my childhood was basically a crash course in personal finance. I loved it so much that I wound up working on Wall Street and managing money for the super rich. And when I was there, I had this giant moment of, oh my goodness, this is so not accessible. It's not inclusive. And the fact that schools don't teach personal finance creates a major opportunity gap in our system that disproportionately affects women and communities of color. So I created 111. We're a financial wellness platform that empowers people to live happier lives while helping businesses increase profits. We're backed in behavior science, and we actually partner with employers as an employee benefit. A lot of our partners experience high turnover. Better salary and benefits is one of the top reasons people quit for our partners. We also see things like they don't feel valued or supported by their employer. So we come in to help the biggest causes of turnover, and our assistance helps companies get a 3 to 4x ROI on their investment because we increase retention, we lower healthcare costs, we increase productivity, and we boost employee engagement. And that is a huge deal because 4 in 5 Americans are paycheck to paycheck. This is the number one thing in their lives that stresses them out. And we can come in and help individuals and companies both thrive. The thing that makes us different is we are backed in behavior science, and we actually create results. Up until recently, financial wellness, it was kind of a check the box thing. We offer it, less than 2% of people use it. For us, we're beyond 10x what typical engagement looks like. We are the most high engagement financial wellness platform out there, and that's because we deliver the most value. So we have many partners, including Fortune 500 companies and top 10 public universities. Some quick stats here. 83% worried less about money within 60 days. On average, participants increase their emergency fund by a full month of living expenses, which in a world where nearly half of Americans don't have $400 to their name, that is a huge deal. And they reduce their credit card debt by 26%. The way our approach works, again, it's all that behavior science, right? I think a lot of people look at financial literacy, and the problem I saw was they were pointing to books and websites, and that's great, but that doesn't really solve the problem. We have more financial, places for help that are free than ever, and the stats are still really, really bad. And the thing that everybody misses that we get is behavior change. We have psychologists on our team building our product every step of the way. And we're able to take people through every cycle in their financial journey, from overspending to break even, emergency fund, and all the way through long-term growth and investing. The way our platform works is when we partner with the company, we're able to help everybody that's pre-401k. So if you're worried about the day-to-day, the emergency fund, that kind of stuff, that is where we come in, and that creates inclusion within the organization. It gives everybody a chance versus the 401k, which it's great. It's the historical financial benefit, but really it only helps people who are rich enough to contribute. But what about everyone else that can't afford to do that? That's where we come in. We give people everything they need to achieve their money goals in one mobile app. They can sign up and start making progress in less than 60 seconds. It's super accessible and easy. We have short-term goals. So whatever people can achieve in the next 30 days, and this is a psychologist on our team talking, that's what they're doing. That's part of how we get those unparalleled results. They have a wealth team, a certified financial planner, and a wealth coach that specializes in psychology right in their pocket at all times via chat and video. They've got an entire team behind them that can help them tackle any financial challenge that arises. They can take courses based on their interest to boost their money confidence. They can create a budget that actually works and manage day to day, and their coach is right there to help them. And they can spend mindfully in a way that supports their personal values. So we are changing the game at 111. We're taking something that historically has only been accessible to the super rich. We are getting it to be paid for by employers, helping them profit. We're making the whole process of becoming financially stable simple, easy, fun, and you can do it right from your cell phone in just minutes a day. Thanks so much, everyone. And we're just really excited to be able to help millions of Americans around the country fund their happy through 111. Thank you.
So impressive, Danny. So impressive. I mean, where do you start? Such a compelling story driving you and what you've done. And I think for many who at the start might have been thinking, how is this EdTech? I think it was so wonderful to hear how you're really driving behavioral science in a way and in an area that needs so much impact as well. So it's such a wonderful example of a team that's creating such clear impact in a space that we, perhaps weren't approaching the right way before, as you said, like throwing resources at people versus going for behavioral change. So impressive. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today to share more about 111, and congrats on all the work that you and your team are doing.
Oh, thank you, Patrick, and thanks everyone for joining and hearing our story.
Thanks, Danny. All right, taking us home is Ritu Gupta. Ritu, I know we're going to share a presentation. How's that going, tech-wise?
Let me know if
perfect.
You can see. Awesome. Okay.
Nice work. Over to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Patrick. It's lovely to be here. Greetings, everyone, in what part of wherever you are, morning, evening, afternoon. I'm Ritu Gupta, founding CEO of CircledIn. CircledIn empowers Gen Z youth born in 21st century in high school and college students to showcase their professional capabilities and enable recruiters at colleges and employers to find the best fit candidates for their institution. We are connecting the dots for high school, colleges, and employers. A few years ago, my daughter had a painful and frustrating application process. She's not an avid test taker, but hugely passionate about medicine, which was reflected in her science projects, hours of volunteering, running clubs in her school. But there was no way for her to showcase any of those diverse skills and passions beyond academics on that application. For you and I, super easy to do using LinkedIn. Not for her and other 78 million Gen Z students just in the United States. Interestingly, we also found that recruiters at colleges, employers, etc., they need more information to recruit the best fit candidates. And lacking that holistic view, they buy these mass basic email list, spread a wide net, waste billions of dollars in blind mass antiquated marketing on a very modern Gen Z. Thousands of dollars are spent per recruit, and still they cannot meet their equity and diversity goals either. And the worst part, about half of the students leave the campus or employer within first year. Seemed like a no-brainer to create an innovative platform with a data layer that connects the whole value chain of students, higher education, and employer, and also in the process build a massive billion-dollar company. Welcome to CircledIn, Youth Recruitment 2.0, the only platform that creates a rich data layer, transforming students' data into useful and actionable information for recruiters and making youth recruitment more cost-efficient, effective, and equitable. It's a unique platform at the intersection of EdTech, HRTech, consumer SaaS, closing the information gap. We don't fit in any one box, but what we do, we connect students to their next big opportunity, education or employment, and we uniquely bring the whole ecosystem together, opening up the entire market. For students, it's a platform designed and built for them. It's secure, it's modern, and they love using it. We knew that 66% of the software bought by K-12 every year sits on the shelf, $6 billion wasted. We didn't want to be that 66%. So we built this platform, which is super engaging. Students come in, they create their profile, compile all their activities inside and outside school in 7 categories that we designed after interviewing 100 colleges and 3 dozen employers based on what are the success criteria of people in your campus or in your institution. With CircledIn, students get to showcase themselves in their natural self-expression way with videos, pictures, and certificates and awards. For my daughter and her peers, CircledIn empowers them to share their authentic and holistic story for all applications with just click of a button. And for recruiters, CircledIn is a breath of fresh air. With a data-driven recruitment approach, they get to learn more about their candidates and get to recruit who are going to be most likely to succeed, creating a win-win for both sides. As you can imagine, there are all different recruiters who are looking for that type of information that helps them get to the point where it's most effective, not only from cost and efficiency perspective, but making these students thrive and be successful in their campus. But we started with college recruitment as our beachhead. Most people may not know that tier 2 and below colleges, other than Harvard's and MIT's, tier 2 and below are struggling to meet their enrollment goal. And many in a COVID world are on the verge of closing down. Happy to talk more about that. But what happens is colleges have enrollment quota every year. So to meet that goal, they buy these mass email lists, but don't know much about these students. And they waste $10 billion. That's a real number for our higher education market. And no surprising, my daughter received flyers from all boys colleges. That's how bad the data is that they are using. And colleges with CircledIn, they use this modern search engine and rich data profile that students are maintaining. And with that, they can market to the right segment of students. It's like California State University can come and search for students in California, GPA 2.8 to 3.2, and let's say 100 hours of volunteering. Just like LinkedIn revolutionized corporate recruitment, we are innovating college recruitment while leveling the playing field of college admissions. And we already have 18 paying universities to find their next best fit freshman class. Our initial customers are seeing amazing results. It sounds crazy, but one university reported 17 times more enrollment through CircledIn, and they just renewed their contract for 3rd year in a row. But we are more proud of our next achievement. 70% students from CircledIn were unique, not found on 5 other one-off platforms. We are humbled by the fact that CircledIn is uncovering hidden talent, closing the opportunity gap, and also helping recruiters with their equity and diversity goals too. Students like Adam, low income, scattered 11th grader, within 4 weeks of putting his profile together, he not only got an internship, but boosted his confidence, saying, "Oh, I didn't know I have done so much." CircledIn is a perfect double bottom line solution where we can make money and dent in the universe. This is where we are in our journey. We are not running for the money. We do have revenue, but what we wanted to do, establish this marketplace break the egg and chicken, which we have done. Over 500,000 students have signed up on CircleIn. That's more than proof of concept. And let me remind that this is all with $0 ad spend, completely organic. Word of mouth, I know it sounds cheesy, but that's what has happened here. And we are proud to be part of Elite 200 by GSV. And of course, now North America EdTech 200 by HolonIQ. This is the power of CircleIn. By bringing the whole ecosystem together, CircleIn helps students thrive on their continuum of learning and earning. As you can imagine, we are meeting students at the beginning of their high school, a pivotal and fascinating stage where education and employment start overlapping. So why have all these different tools and platforms for that? CircleIn serves all those purposes and brings that transforming students' information into useful and actionable information for recruiters. And our next stop is going to be employers. We have acquired students, we have placed them in colleges, and now let's bring the employers on the platform. That's what we are doing. This is the team making it happen. Similar to Tina, actually, I had a very humble beginning in India, and I helped my teacher mom start and run an elementary school in our home when I was like literally 10 years old. So with that, the value of education went deep in my DNA. And from that humble beginning, I got here because of education. I was part of AT&T Wireless team that took the company to IPO, and I managed $500 million product line in a Fortune 50 company. And excited to share that recently I was inducted in Forbes Next 1000. Our CTO Prashant, he has over 20 years of experience in cloud, data, security, anything and everything we needed for CircleIn. He has this. And this is our third startup together. In addition to that, we have built a stellar advisory board that has provided impressive support to us. As for my daughter, this fall, she started her dream school thanks to CircleIn. So we are working towards a day when every student gets matched with their next best fit opportunity, education or employment, based on who they are, and make them successful by bringing the whole ecosystem together. We want to create the future we all want. Thank you.
So impressive, Ritu. Really, really impressive. The background, the impact you're having, the way you're spanning K-12 and higher ed. Obviously a win-win for so many of your stakeholders as well. And it feels like you're just getting started. So big congrats to you and the team. No surprise you've received all of those awards either. And congrats on being part of the North America EdTech 200 as well. And thanks for spending some time with us to tell your story today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, and excited to be here.
Thanks, Ritu. All right, we're wrapping up, everybody. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you to Dan, to Danny, to Ritu, and to Ash for spending time sharing their stories with you all today. For those who are customers, you can jump onto the platform to dig deep into this cohort. For the rest of you, please visit holoniq.com. You can actually see this map in detail, start to dig into some of the stats and some of the companies that we've identified as the most promising EdTech startups across North America EdTech 200. As I mentioned, this rounds out the EdTech 1000 for HolonIQ for 2021. So you can also work way around the world. We're not all on planes as much these days, but you can take a virtual trip of the world and visit the top 1,000 EdTech companies around the world at HolonIQ again. So thank you again to our presenters. Thank you to everyone who's joined us for the webinar today. Congratulations to all of those companies who are part of the EdTech 200 as well. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.